I've got another metaphor. I'm starting to learn that this is how I think, and I hope it's helpful for all of you. I guess I think visually, and when I think of these metaphors, it helps me internalize these concepts. So, the concept that I'm going to be talking about today is self-care, or the relationship with the self. A lot of times people will speak to me in therapy or in mindfulness classes about how they are trying to build relationships, either friendships or romantic relationships, or strengthen the relationships with their family members. And it keeps failing. And they don't know why it keeps failing. And all they want is close relationships, but their attempts don't seem to be working. I use the image, or I came up with it today, of a table. Imagine you're in your house and one of the tables in your house, the leg is broken, or multiple legs are broken, but the table is not sturdy, and you go to place 2 bowling balls on the table. If the leg has enough damage to it, the table will collapse, and it will fall over, and the bowling balls will roll off, and they'll roll around the house. And then the thought will be, well, why didn't the table sustain the bowling balls? And it's because there was damage to the table. It wasn't sturdy, wasn't strong enough to hold the bowling balls. And then if the person doesn't fix the table, and they just kind of prop it back up with the same damage that it has, and then they go to place the 2 bowling balls on the table again, the table collapses again, falls over, the bowling balls roll around the house. The person says, why didn't the table hold the bowling balls? They prop the table up again, still with the same damage, not trying to reinforce the table or in any way or trying to strengthen it, but just trying again, placing the 2 bowling balls on the table. Inevitably, it will collapse again. I think that this is what happens when people are trying to build relationships. There is something that is not reinforced. And the table in my metaphor is the relationship with the self. And the 2 bowling balls is the relationship with you and another person. The relationship with you and another person, it can't exist in a healthy way, in a true healthy relationship, if we do not first have that relationship with the self, the sturdiness within our own relationship. It is the table. It is the container, you can say, or the platform on which the relationship rests. And it is the relationship between you and another person is held up by your relationship with yourself. I think a lot of people miss this part. Well, I'll say it this way. A lot of times this comes up in therapy with my clients or in the mindfulness classes, and I think that it's a misguided approach, in that they keep placing the bowling balls back on the table and saying, why is it not working? And sometimes it could be helpful to reorient, to understand that first the table needs to be reinforced before we try to put something on it, to place more weight on it. The next question that usually comes up is, how do I reinforce the table? How do I build a relationship with myself? How do I go about doing that? And I can't really answer that question for them or for you. I can only answer that question for myself. So I'll tell you how I reinforce that question. To build that relationship with myself, how I have in the past. A lot of it was through meditation, through sitting in silence and exploring what's happening internally, and considering deep questions like who am I and what are my needs? That's a big one. One that I work with a lot. What is it that I need right now? And how am I going to go about giving myself that need? And the more we get in the habit of considering our own needs and tending to ourselves, we are building the relationship with ourselves. If you think about a relationship with another person, if you're able to tend to them, care for them, that will help build the relationship. It's the same thing with ourselves. So meditation is something that I've used. Journaling. Questions like writing down what is it that I need, and journaling. Not letting the pen stop and seeing what comes out. Talking to other people. Having conversations with people that you trust. Whether it be a friend, a family member, a therapist. Exploring this whatever is going on in you to get a better understanding, as opposed to turning away. This kind of piggybacks on in one of my prior episodes where I talked about addiction and ways in which we avoid what's going on. We can stop avoiding. Meaning, stop looking at Instagram compulsively, stop shopping online compulsively, stop binge watching Netflix, stopping, and not entirely, like these things can be enjoyed in moderation, but like if there's a compulsion towards them and it's filling up a lot of the space, then we are not spending time with the reality of what's going on in what's happening in us internally, in our thoughts and our emotions. And to sit with what is here, what is real for us, to see what is going on in our mind, is one way to build a relationship with the self. It's also self-care, like textbook examples of self-care. Going to a place that you find to be peaceful. If it's warm out and it's the beach, going to the beach and just being there. Being in a place where you feel at peace. Maybe there's a certain room in your house where you feel more at peace than other rooms. Spending time in this room. Maybe you feel at peace when you're cooking. Carving that into your life throughout your week. Taking care of yourself. It's like, how would we take care of a plant? We would give it its needs. Water, food, sun. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we build a relationship with ourselves? Give ourselves what we need. Healthy diet. Exercise. Sunlight, vitamin D. Vitamins. Rest. If life seems too busy to be able to give ourselves these things, then maybe it's worth sitting down and writing out, taking a look at one of your days and writing out what happens in one of these days or one of these weeks, and logging your hours, logging your time, and seeing if you can't make some changes to incorporate some things in your day or life that will reinforce this reinforce this relationship with the self, so that we're able to then go and build other relationships that are held up by this primary relationship of our relationship with ourself. I mentioned it in multiple prior podcasts. Jack Kornfield said most of the, I don't know the exact language, but most of the contemplative internal practice is self-care, is self-acceptance, maybe all of it. It's very fundamental, the relationship to the self. And it could be as simple as imagining you saw yourself sitting on a bench in a park and it looked like you were struggling and that you needed support. And you walked over and you sat next to yourself on the bench. What is it that you might say to yourself to be supportive? And what stops us from doing that right here, right now? So considering the potential of changing the orientation, of Why aren't all these other relationships working? Why can't I relate to people professionally, in friendships, romantically, in my family? How come I keep trying and it's not working? How come I keep placing these bowling balls on this table and they keep falling off? It's like maybe the approach would help to have a reorientation to the approach. Maybe looking in, maybe as an experiment, looking at the question, how am I relating to myself? Not what is the problem with me relating to all these other people, but what is the problem in which I am relating to myself? Is it working out? How do I feel about the relationship with myself? And if it's not working, how can I change it? Okay, that's all for today. I do want to say I'm starting to get into the structure of recording these on Wednesdays and sometimes on Thursdays as well. But as always, so I'm not sure if that's a good structure for all of you, but you can email me with feedback, james@themindfulplace.net. And I want this to be interactive. You know, it's not my intention for this to be me speaking into my microphone and all of you listening. I want there to be a sense of community. And that's really the only way that I can think of us interacting. But I mean, I do have the Facebook group, which you can see in the info on the podcast website, either Anchor or Spotify or iTunes. You can join the Facebook community and give feedback there, but I would like for there to be a sense of community and engagement. So if you can email me with feedback of ideas of how that might work, I'd appreciate that. But I'd like to go into the direction more of this being a community. Maybe you can help me get there. All right, take care.